China treated housing like infrastructure. America treated it like an investment product. And that one difference explains why one country built homes at a scale the world had never seen, while the other turned the basic starter home into a luxury item. For decades, the American dream was simple. You worked hard, saved money, bought a house, raised a family, and slowly built a life. The house was not supposed to be a trophy. It was not supposed to be a financial weapon. It was supposed to be the foundation. But today, that foundation is moving further and further away from the people it was built for. In many American cities, the starter home has almost disappeared. The small house that once helped young families enter the middle class has been replaced by million-dollar listings, luxury apartments, investor-owned rentals, and homes priced so high that even people with good jobs feel locked out. Teachers cannot afford to live near the schools where they teach. Nurses cannot afford homes near the hospitals where they work. Young couples delay having children because rent eats half their income. Adults in their 30s and 40s are still living with parents, not because they failed, but because the housing market changed the rules. America did not run out of land. It ran out of affordable housing, and that is where the comparison with China becomes uncomfortable. Because China did not solve housing perfectly. It has empty apartments, it has debt problems, it has overbuilt cities, it has developers that collapsed under the weight of their own borrowing. But even with all those problems, China did something America has struggled to do for decades. It built. It built at a speed and scale that is almost impossible to imagine from an American perspective. Entire districts appeared where farmland used to be. High-speed rail connected new cities to old ones. Apartment towers rose in clusters. Roads, schools, hospitals, transit stations, parks, and shopping areas were planned around housing instead of being treated as an afterthought. China looked at urbanization and saw a national project. America looked at housing and saw a private market. That difference shaped everything. China had hundreds of millions of people moving from rural areas into cities. If it did not build, the cities would break. So housing became part of the country's development machine. Local governments released land, state banks financed construction, developers built huge projects, infrastructure followed. Sometimes the system built too much, sometimes it built in the wrong places, sometimes quality was uneven. But the basic instinct was clear. More people need homes, so build more homes. America's instinct became almost the opposite. More people need homes, so protect existing homeowners from change. That is the hidden reason behind the crisis. America's housing problem is not just about high interest rates or expensive materials. Those matter, but they are not the full story. The deeper problem is that America built a system where housing scarcity benefits the people who already own property. If a neighborhood blocks new apartments, existing home values stay high. If zoning laws ban duplexes, townhomes, and smaller homes, supply stays limited. If cities require huge parking lots, large setbacks, long approval processes, and endless community meetings, building becomes slower and more expensive. Then everyone acts surprised when homes become unaffordable. But unaffordability is not an accident. It is the result of choices repeated over decades. In China, the state often forced housing supply into existence. In America, local politics often stopped housing supply before it could even start. That is why one country ended up with overbuilding problems, while the other ended up with underbuilding problems. China's problem is that it built so much housing that some places struggled to fill it. America's problem is that it built so little affordable housing that millions of people cannot find it. Both systems have flaws, but the outcomes feel very different for ordinary people. In China, the danger was housing becoming a speculative bubble because construction moved too fast and property became a major store of wealth. In America, the danger is housing becoming a luxury good because construction moved too slowly and property became a protected asset class. And this is where the story gets even more ironic. America is one of the richest countries on earth. It has advanced technology, massive land resources, deep capital markets, world-class architects, powerful construction companies, and a long history of suburban development. This is the country that built highways across a continent, suburbs after World War II, skyscrapers in every major city, and entire metro regions around the automobile. America knows how to build when it wants to, but when it comes to housing for normal people, the machine gets stuck. A developer wants to build apartments. The city delays approval. Neighbors complain about traffic. Someone says the building will change the character of the area. Someone else demands more parking. The project gets smaller, more expensive, or dies completely. Then the same city releases a report saying housing is unaffordable. This happens again and again. China approached housing from a completely different direction. It saw cities as engines of national growth. Moving people into urban areas meant creating workers, consumers, infrastructure networks, and economic output. Housing was not just about comfort, it was about development. So the country built apartments on a scale that made Western observers stunned. For years, cranes became a symbol of China's rise. Every skyline looked unfinished because every skyline was still growing. But here is the uncomfortable part. Even China's mistakes came from building too much. America's mistakes came from making it too hard to build enough. That is why the comparison hits so hard. China's housing model may be messy, risky, and heavily controlled, but it proves something important. America treats housing like a local inconvenience. And because every neighborhood gets veto power, the national crisis never gets solved at the national level. So America ends up with shiny new buildings that normal workers cannot afford, while the older affordable units disappear or get renovated into higher rents. The market keeps producing housing, but not the kind people need. That is why the phrase luxury housing appears everywhere. Luxury apartments, luxury townhomes, luxury condos, luxury rentals. But at some point, luxury stopped meaning luxury. It became a marketing word for new. This is the tragedy of American housing. The country did not just make mansions expensive, it made normal life expensive. China's model shows the power of scale. America's model shows the cost of scarcity. And the biggest difference may be psychological. China often asks, how do we house a massive population moving into cities? America often asks, how do we protect the value of what already exists? One question looks forward, the other looks backward. That does not mean America should copy China. It should not. China's system has serious problems, and its property sector became dangerously dependent on endless construction. But America can still learn from the part China got right. So America says it wants affordable housing, while banning affordable housing forms. That is the contradiction. China built too aggressively and is paying for excess. America protected scarcity, is paying for exclusion. China's housing story is not a fairy tale. It is complicated, but it proves scale is possible. America's housing story is not hopeless, but it requires admitting the truth. China answered with scale. America answered with scarcity. And until America changes that answer, the starter home will keep disappearing